After a phenomenal championship weekend at TD Garden in the Hockey East tournament, it's time for the NCAAs, and all 4 teams that made it to TD Garden are in the NCAA regionals. Should be a blast. We're ready to break it all down this week in Hockey East. Hey everybody, it's a postseason edition of This Week in Hockey East with Eric Galante. I'm Tyler Murray. 4 games to break down. Very exciting stuff. This is the best tournament in sports, if you ask me. Eric, let's go chronological to get things started anyway. The very first game of the NCAA tournament is UMass against Denver in Springfield Thursday afternoon.
Yeah, first and foremost, congratulations to UMass for making it as the last at-large team into the field. So Hockey East gets 4 teams in. We're excited about that. And this is a matchup with the team that they needed to win, Denver, getting the win, and now they get to play the Denver Pioneers in the first round in Springfield, of course, because UMass is the host, as many of you know, in Springfield. Big for UMass to get in, but this Denver team is something else. And of course, UMass coming off the offense in Boston College that they just played. There's only one team in the country that scored more than Boston College this year, and that is Denver. I saw them back in October. Remember, they played at Conte Forum. And I know it was a long time ago, but they were as impressive against BC in terms of, remember, BC had a lead in that game going into the third period, and Denver beat them. And again, it's a long time ago, but they really were the most impressive team in terms of that aspect against Boston College. So that stands out. Listen, for UMass, I think this is one of those great teaching moments if you're a coach, because Greg Carvel's been here so many times before, and you just go ahead and you flush Friday. I know Friday didn't go the way they wanted it to, but you flush that. You get a chance here at the sort of de facto home game. UMass's fans will be there, and now they'll get to see how they perform on this stage. The challenge, though, once again, very similarly to what we saw against Boston College, is can they get above that 3-goal mark? Can they win a game where the scoring is high? Because Denver is a tough team to tie down in terms of the amount of goals. Denver, 5 consecutive wins. They only have 1 loss in their last 12 games. They've scored 3+ goals in 12 straight. They've scored below 3 only 3 times all year. So for UMass, once again, the start is crucial. And to their credit, they actually started okay against BC on Friday. They had a 1-0 lead in that game. It was 1-1 until early in the second period. But Denver's a tough team to go chase down. So the start is really important. Good start against Providence, good start at the end of the regular season against Maine. So that's going to be important for UMass. But again, I'm not so much worried about, is this going to be a hangover game for Michael Frabel? He's shown an ability to bounce back. I think the whole team will pretty well. But Tyler, they got to get this power play right. I think that's the big thing. And I don't think I'm, speaking out of turn saying that. Greg Carvel's been tinkering with the power play. You can tell. But they're just 4 for their last 41, which it's such an advantage when UMass is on their power play and their power play is going right. Greg Carvel has tinkered. He's moved Scott Morrow down low a little bit. He's switched spots with him from where he normally is with Ufko at the top of the point. Now, Denver doesn't have a great penalty kill. It's bottom 15 in the country, but that is something to watch for. But again, to me, this is all about, can UMass flush Friday? Can they take advantage of having their fans there, getting that first game, trying to hold down with Denver, but they have to find a way to get off to that fast start because, again, Denver is a very tough team to chase down.
Let's keep it in the Springfield Regional. Maine against Cornell. 5:30 is the scheduled time for the Thursday puck drop. Cornell's a really good team. We know this. They've only lost 6 times all year. Didn't have to beat Quinnipiac in the ECHC championship game, but they did beat the Bobcats 3-2 in overtime in the regular season. They beat BU 2-1 at Madison Square Garden. And you're hearing those scores a lot in these big games. It shouldn't be a surprise with Cornell. Low scoring. They don't need to overwhelm you with offense, even though they're averaging about 3.5 goals a game this year, which is very solid. It's all about the top-ranked defense for the Big Red. They allow just 1.9 goals per game. It's really them and Boston College at Quinnipiac at top of the leaderboard there. And when Cornell gets ahead, and we've seen it for years, you see all those big red sweaters packing it into the defensive end, and it really puts pressure on teams, especially in a win-or-go-home situation. But Maine, I was really impressed with them, even in a losing effort in the semifinals. BU talked after that game how difficult it was just to establish offensive zone time. Moving the puck through the neutral zone was difficult. It was Matthew Caron in goal and BU's power play that were the difference in that game. Maine outshot BU 33-18 in that game. In the second period, they had 10 of the first 11 shots. Caron made 13 saves in both the second and the third period. Albin Boya only had to make 14 saves the entire game. So maybe on a different night, that goes Maine's way. But their huge crowd on Friday at the Garden was phenomenal, but taken out of the game a little bit until Lyndon Breen scored that power play goal in the third period. So let's see if the Black Bear faithful can take over the Mass Mutual Center just like they did at TD Garden. And I'm really interested to see how a non-conference team handles the Nadeau brothers for the first time. You know, maybe Hockey East teams got used to them a little bit, maybe some familiarity, maybe a game plan against them, but for them to be on the ice against a Cornell team is going to be a fascinating matchup to watch, see if the Big Red have any answers for them. But just like you talked about with UMass, power play might be the key for Maine. And they're on the other end of the spectrum. They're scorching hot. The Black Bears are 8 for the last 19 on the power play. Can they keep that going against a Cornell team that doesn't take a lot of penalties? They're just, 11 penalties in their last 6 games. So they do a great job staying out of the box. But when Cornell has to go shorthanded, they're at 79% on the penalty kill. That's bottom half of the country, 36th. So that could be Maine's biggest edge in this matchup as they try to get into the next round for the first time in a decade.
Everyone said we don't want to have to be the team to play Cornell. Cornell is the team coming in that no one wanted to play, and Maine's the one who gets that assignment. Let's go down the road to the Providence Regional. Boston College and Michigan Tech will be the 1/16 game. That will take place on Friday. Michigan Tech, third straight time in the tournament here, but first as an at-large, as an auto bid as they win the CCHA 2-1 over Bemidji. Really impressive turnaround for Michigan Tech. Remember, this was the team picked 10th nationally in the preseason poll, but they did not win a game in October. But they're right now. 3 straight 1-goal wins, 5 straight wins overall, 7 of their last 8. And they have an outstanding goaltender, and that's something that stands out. Blake Pietila, .920 save percentage, 2.28 goals against. He was a top 3 Richter finalist and an All-American last year. This might be the goaltending region, by the way. You have him, you have Jacob Fowler and Kyle McClellan, who are both Richter Award finalists this year, plus Vinny Duplessis. 4 of the top 15 in save percentage nationally are in this region. So if there was ever a region that you might get goalied, this is the region where that might happen. Pietila did that against Bemidji, 17 saves in the third period to win that game 2-1. I think we know the obvious things that you need to do against Boston College to try to beat them. You can't take penalties. We know that. We saw that. BC 4 for 5 against BU. Well, Michigan Tech has the second fewest penalty minutes per game of any team in this tournament and 6 nationally. So they do a good job staying out of the box. Their overall penalty kill numbers are not great, but they've been really good second semester. So they bounce back well. They block a lot of shots. They're pretty good at controlling the game, top 10 Corsi percentage. Power play is decent, but they don't have many power play minutes, bottom 10 in the country in power play minutes per game. The other thing that stands out, 11-3 in 1-goal games. So if they get in tight games, they have found ways to win them. But of course, Boston College doesn't play that many close games, and that's something that stands out. There's so many ways to put this season in context for BC, but I think the fact that they just have not had one of those games that you look at as a natural trap game or a game that you might overlook. They have not had one of those all year, which is what can happen sometimes in a 1/16 matchup in the NCAA tournament. Their stars were stars this Hockey East Championship weekend, 12 goals, 17 assists between their 4 first-round picks alone in 2 games against 2 NCAA tournament teams. So that may be enough to win the day if the stars show up. But if we see the Boston College that we saw from a couple of weeks ago, those are some of the ways Michigan Tech might have an opportunity. Quinnipiac, Wisconsin, it's a pretty fascinating regional, whichever team ends up coming out, that the winner of that game will have to play on Sunday.
I know what you're saying about the vulnerability maybe of a 1 versus 16, but if there's any weaknesses that we found with BC all year, I mean, no red flags on our end. They seem like a completely loaded team. We'll see if they can get the job done. And of course, the last game, BU, the number 2 overall seed, playing Atlantic hockey champion RIT at 5 o'clock on Friday in Sioux Falls. First ever meeting between the programs. RIT was not a Cinderella story in Atlantic hockey this year. They won the regular season, swept the quarterfinals, swept the semifinals, then beat AIC in the title game, outscoring opponents 26-6 in that 5-0 perfect tournament run for them. Tied for 5th in the country in scoring defense, tied for 6th in the country in scoring offense, and we'll find out whether or not those numbers are a product of their dominance within their respective conference. But their most impressive win of the year, probably against number 2 UNH at home back in November. 5-4 win, so they can score against quality Hockey East defenses. And everyone's talking about the experience for RIT for good reason. 5 grad students, 4 seniors, one of the older teams in the tournament. Former UMass blue liner Gianfranco Casero, one of the highest scoring blue liners in the country, even has more goals than Lane Hudson from the blue line this year. BU, of course, disappointed with the 6-2 loss on the championship game, but I think we can agree the final score, it doesn't show how tight it was for the first 2 periods, at least. It was a 2-1 game, 3 minutes left in the second. Dylan Peterson gets loose at the blue line, and if not for great saves by Jacob Fowler, he or Nick Zabanet might find a way to tie that game. Then you get the penalty, Cutter Gauthier, the back-breaking power play goal. It is a little silly for me to say that the 2 teams were tied 5-on-5, 1-1, because the story of the game is BC's power play. You said it. 4 power play goals, 4 total goals from Will Smith, but just a way to illustrate the fact that if BU can stay out of the box, they're very tough to beat. The 3 teams in their bracket in that region, not prolific on the 5-on-4. RIT 13th in the country, Minnesota 14th. Omaha is 43rd. So it's not going to be that unstoppable BC power play attack. I really thought that Ryan Green emerged as a valuable second-line option over the weekend. 2 goals in the semis, 2 assists in the championship. So he's another option while everybody's watching Hudson and Celebrini. Opportunity for BU to make sure their lasting memory of the season isn't the disappointment in the Garden to their arch rivals. So they're going to be fully motivated to get this thing done and get back to the Frozen Four for a second straight year.
And as we wrap up, let's take a short shift, brought to you by the Shift Group, helping elite athletes and veterans become elite sales professionals. And let's just quickly look back at what was an amazing weekend at TD Garden last weekend. The crowds were amazing, 2 sold-out days, biggest attendance since 2005 for the Hockey East tournament. The fan bases were awesome. Tyler, you did a great job on TV along with Billy and George. And, you know, sometimes we love close games and they're fun to watch, and we know that. But sometimes you also love getting to see greatness. And we always try to shy away from being prisoners of the moment and being prone to hyperbole because you don't want to go down that road. But the reality is, and again, they got to keep going, but the reality is that that was as dominant a Hockey East championship weekend as we have ever had. And our good friend Jim Connolly made the point that as good as that 1993 Maine team was, and I'm not comparing this Boston College team to that 1993 Maine team, in terms of the 2 games in the Hockey East semis and finals, the Eagles were actually even more dominant than that Maine team was. So we can even just say, at least in the last 30 years, that was about the best Hockey East performance, start to finish, that we have seen. And now we'll see what they do in the NCAA tournament, but it was great to be able to watch that. The building was awesome. A shout out to all the folks at Hockey East for making it a really, really special tournament.
It was a special regular season and conference tournament. We'll see if that keeps going. And as long as Hockey East teams are still alive, we will be along for the ride. So stay tuned. We'll hopefully talk to you soon on This Week in Hockey East.